Okay, so now how do I count? How do I actually count the number of observations inside each one of these bins? That is to say, falling between the left endpoint and the right endpoint of each one of these bins. Well, as I mentioned before, it's gonna be a two-step process. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to count everything smaller than this larger right endpoint, and then we're going to count the number of observations smaller than the left endpoint, and then we're going to difference those two values to obtain the count of observations that fall right between those left and right endpoints. Okay, so here's the formula you want to use. So I'm going to say equals here, okay, and then I'm going to say count if. I'm right under this count left column here. Okay, so I'm going to say count if. I'm going to select the things that I want to count, column A. Okay, and then for the criterion, I have to enter this in a very specific way. So watch what I do here. I'm going to do in quotes less than or equal to. Whoops, less than or equal to. Okay, and then I'm going to enter in the ampersand symbol. Okay, so that's shift 7 is the ampersand symbol. Okay, and then I'm going to select our cell here, our J2. Okay, I'm going to close off that parentheses. Now you go, why do I need the and J2? Why can't I just include that into the whole string? Well, if I do that, when I update that downwards, the J2 isn't going to update. The J2 isn't going to change. Okay, so I need this particular syntax. I need this and J2 syntax. Okay, so go ahead and press enter. Okay, and now you'll see that the result should be 1. Okay, now why is that? That's because the number of observations which are less than or equal to the left endpoint of our first bin, okay, should just be equal to 1. Well, what is that one observation? That's the smallest observation. That's the minimum value of income in our whole data set, which is this 2283 number. Okay, so how many numbers are less than or equal to 2283 in our data set? Well, just that one observation, the smallest observation. Okay, so that's our left endpoint. Okay, now for the right endpoint, I'm simply going to Control C. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste the formula over. Okay, and you'll notice that it's updated correctly. Okay, it is referring to K2. However, we didn't put an absolute cell reference here, so it's also shifted the range that it's counting. So we don't want that. We still want it to count column A. Okay, and then we do want it to count up to our right endpoint. So this K2 is correct. But I don't want to double count the values that are at the endpoints. Okay, so if I have an observation that falls exactly at one of the endpoints, I don't want to count that twice in the first bin and then also in the subsequent bin. Okay, so I'm going to change this less than or equal to a strictly less than, and then I'm going to press enter. Okay, and so you should get 2 there. Okay. And then I'm simply going to update all of these numbers downwards. I'm going to select those 2 cells and I'm going to drag all the way downward. Okay, and those are going to be our counts. Okay, and so you can see that, for example, in our first bin, okay, in between $20,000 and $22,000 worth of income, okay, we have 1 and 2. Okay, and then there's again 2 people who have strictly less than $22,000 worth of income, but there's 4 people who have strictly less than $24,000 worth of income. Okay, so then what's our total count going to be? Our total count is going to simply be our count up to the right minus the count up to the left. Okay, I'm going to take that number and I'm going to update that all the way down as well. Okay, and you see now we're seeing the actual numbers of people in each one of these income categories. Okay. Now there's one final detail. Okay, I should have mentioned this. I should have mentioned this earlier in the lecture. I hope I did. Okay, there's one final detail, which is that for this final endpoint here, for this final count, okay, there's no worry about double counting the final endpoint. So if there's an observation that's the maximum observation in our entire data set, that's going to be all the way at the right endpoint of the last bit, right? And we want to count that. So I want to go down to this final equation here, this final bin, okay, and I want to change this count right to a less than or equal to rather than a strictly less than, okay? Okay, and then that's going to count our final observation. Okay, and that's pretty much it. That's these counts. Okay.